Hey, welcome to Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Think Thursday is all about your beautiful, brilliant human brain. We're talking neuroscience. We're talking behavior change. We are talking about your mindset. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Hey, we are revisiting an episode this week all about the neuroscience of new habit formation. And it's especially appropriate coming out of Q1 because many of us make resolutions in the beginning of the year, and by the end of Q1, they're already faltering. I hope this revisited episode helps you out, and I will see you on Monday. Hello, and welcome back to Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist. Think Thursdays are all about brain health, behavior change, mindset. And today's episode is something that might seem a little counterintuitive at first glance. We are going to be talking about why March resolutions might actually work better than January ones. And if you've been struggling with those New Year's resolutions that you set back in January, then this might be exactly what you need to hear. Now, we're well into March, and statistically speaking, about 80% of those ambitious January 1 resolutions have already fallen by the wayside. But here's the thing, that doesn't mean that you have failed at creating new habits. That's right. It's not you. It might just mean that you tried to start them at the wrong time. Isn't that crazy? I know it might sound like an excuse, but stick with me because there's some fascinating neuroscience behind why the timing of our habit formation efforts actually matters. So, speaking of January, let's talk about dry January or dryuary for a moment. Obviously, it's become incredibly popular. You all know, if you listen to Alcohol Minimalist, you know I do it. And there's good reasons why many people successfully complete the month alcohol free and, reap the benefits of that month, feeling good both physically and mentally. But here's the interesting part. Research from the University of Sussex found while 88% of dry January participants save money, 71% sleep better, and 58% lose weight during the month, many struggle to translate those positive changes into long-term sustainable change. So why is that? Why is it that there's a fundamental difference between a time limited challenge and genuine habit formation? Your brain processes these actually differently. A 31-day challenge activates your brain's reward system around completion and achievement. You're working towards a finish line. But lasting habit change requires rewiring those deeper neural pathways that have been ingrained for a long time and that operate below our conscious awareness. And that's kind of what I talk about all the time here on Alcohol Minimalist with regards to changing your relationship with alcohol. Dr. Nora Volkow, director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, explains that temporary breaks like dry January can show us what's possible and they can reset our tolerance, but the brain circuits that drive habitual drinking haven't necessarily been rewired. And I've worked with enough people and for long enough doing this myself, I know that to be true. Doing a dry January is like clearing a path through the woods. But if you don't walk it regularly, the underbrush quickly grows back. Now, I started noticing a pattern about, or a kind of questioning or thinking about this question a few years ago when I noticed a pattern in my own life. I noticed that the habits that I managed to stick with rarely started on January 1st. They started at random times throughout the year when something inside of me just seemed to click. Has anybody else ever experienced that? And it turns out that there is actually solid research behind why March and really any other month outside of January might actually set you up for greater success when it comes to creating new habits. Dr. Katie Milkman, who is a behavioral scientist at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, calls this concept the fresh start effect. And in her research, she's found that we're more motivated to pursue our goals after temporal landmarks, those moments that stand out in our perception of time. So now, January 1st is obviously a big one. That would be a big temporal landmark. But there are so many others. The start of a new month, your birthday, the beginning of spring, even Monday, right? But here's where it gets really interesting from a neuroscience perspective. When we try to form new habits in January, we're fighting against multiple neural headwinds. First, there's the post holiday brain state. Research from the University of Copenhagen has shown that the dramatic shift from a dopamine rich holiday season to the cold reality of January creates a neurochemical environment that is particularly challenging for motivation and follow through. So, especially if you live in the northern hemisphere where it's really cold, really hard in the winters, you are kind of, again, going against a strong neurological headwind. And our brains operate on a delicate balance of neurotransmitters, right? I talk about that often here on the podcast. And after weeks of celebration and social connection, often different eating and sleeping patterns, our neurochemistry needs time to recalibrate. Dr. Trevor Kashey, who is a biochemist, says, and he actually studies habit formation, says the brain doesn't respond well to abrupt transitions. When we suddenly shift from holiday mode to strict resolution mode, we're essentially shocking our neural systems. And so, I know many people go into dry January kind of having had this big, kind of get it all in during December mentality. And that's why making it stick past those 31 days might be very hard because of this, kind of shocking the neural system. So that's the first thing working against us is this, shock factor to our neurotransmitters. The second factor working against January resolutions is what neuroscientists call the intention behavior gap. This is the disconnect between what we intend to do and what we actually do. And this gap gets wider when we're attempting to establish too many habits at once, which is exactly what happens typically in January when many of us try to completely overhaul our lives. Each new habit requires executive function resources that are managed by our prefrontal cortex. And these resources are limited. It's like trying to run too many programs on your computer at once. Everything slows down and eventually crashes. When we try to change multiple behaviors simultaneously, we're essentially overloading our brain's processing power. But wait, it gets even more interesting. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found something called the specificity effect. When researchers looked at habit formation success rates, they discovered that habits formed with specific environmental cues and times were far more likely to stick. And that's where March comes in. By March, our daily routines have stabilized after the holiday disruption, giving us a more consistent environment to anchor our new habits. BJ Fogg, the founder of Stanford's Behavior Design Lab, emphasizes that successful habits need three elements: motivation, ability, and a trigger. In January, our motivation might be high, but our ability is often compromised by post holiday fatigue and the sheer number of changes that we attempt. By March, we've typically returned to a more sustainable rhythm and, and it's increased our ability factor significantly. There's another neurological advantage to starting habits in March: our circadian rhythms. As we move out of winter and the days get longer, our brains produce melatonin and more serotonin. And this shift naturally boosts our energy and mood, creating a more favorable neurological environment for establishing new patterns of behavior. Dr. John Arden, who is the author of The Brain Bible, explains that seasonal changes directly impact our neurochemistry. As sunlight increases in spring, our brain's production of serotonin increases, which positively affects our motivation centers. This makes it easier to overcome the initial resistance that comes with establishing any new habit. So, what does this mean for you in practical terms? How can you use this neuroscience to your advantage? I want to offer 3 specific strategies that align with how your brain naturally works. First, embrace the fresh start effect throughout the year. Don't wait for January 1st to roll around again. And your brain responds to all kinds of temporal landmarks as opportunities for a fresh start. The first day of spring is coming up, and that's a perfect fresh start. Your birthday, the beginning of a new month, even next Monday. These are all opportunities your brain recognizes as potential starting points. Now, I'll tell you, I talk about it all the time here on the show. If you're looking at changing your life for good, in my opinion, every choice is a chance to vote for who you are becoming. You don't need to wait until Monday. You can start today if you are intentional about it and make a decision that is based in those intentions. Second, you can use habit stacking. And this is a technique that it was introduced by James Clear in Atomic Habits. And it's an approach that works with your brain's existing neural pathways rather than trying to forge entirely new ones. The concept is really simple. Stack your new habit onto an existing one. Your brain already has strong neural pathways for your current habits, but make sure it's a habit that you want to keep, right? So, by connecting a new habit to an established one that you want to keep, you're essentially hitchhiking on an existing neural highway. For example, if you already have a solid habit of making coffee every morning and you want to start a meditation practice, you would stack them. After I start the coffee brewing, I'll meditate for 3 minutes. The existing habit serves as a trigger for the new one, making it much more likely to stick because you're not relying solely on willpower or remembering. Now, you're going to experience some cognitive dissonance or some discomfort when you are trying to stack a new habit onto an old one because you're just not used to it yet. Don't take that to mean that there's something wrong or you can't do it. Just start. And just like any other habit, it requires building and practice and time and repetition. Third, design your environment to reduce your cognitive load. This is all about decision fatigue. Our brains make decisions based on what's most accessible in our environment. If you want to read more but keep your books tucked away in a closet while your TV remote is sitting right next to your couch, guess which activity your brain will default to, right? Dr. Wendy Wood, who is a research psychologist who studies habits as well, found that about 45% of our daily behaviors are repeated in the same location almost every day. And this means that by simply changing your environment, you can dramatically change your behavior without requiring as much willpower or, strength in that moment when you are having to surf through an urge or desire or a craving. If you want to drink more water, put a full water bottle next to you every place you typically sit during the day. If you want to exercise in the morning, sleep in your workout clothes and put your shoes right next to the bed. These environmental cues bypass the need for conscious decision making, which is exactly what you want for positive habit formation. The beauty of understanding the neuroscience behind habit formation is that it takes away the shame and self blame that often comes when our January resolutions fall apart. It's not about a lack of willpower or commitment. It's about what's working with your brain's natural tendencies rather than against them. And this brings us back to dry January. If you successfully completed it but found yourself sliding back into old habits by February, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you completed a challenge but hadn't yet established a new habit. And that's okay. You can take what you've learned about yourself during that month and use it now in March, when your brain might actually be more receptive to lasting change. And if you've already abandoned those other January resolutions, consider this your permission slip to try again. Your March resolution isn't a do-over, it's actually your brain's preferred timeline. That's how we'll think about it. You're not starting late, you might actually be starting at exactly the right time. My challenge for you this week is to pick just one habit. One, not five, not three, just one that you want to work on to establish. Choose something small that you can stack on an existing habit and set it up in your environment to make it as easy as possible. Give yourself the neural advantage of starting now when your brain is actually primed for success rather than waiting for next January to roll around. And if that one habit that you're looking to change happens to be your daily drinking habit, I would love to invite you to check out Making Peace with Alcohol. It's my online course and group coaching program, and it's specifically designed to work with your brain's natural habit forming process to help you change your relationship with alcohol. Or if you'd like more personalized support, my Proof Positive program is one-on-one coaching for women, and it is specifically tailored to help people change their daily drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol. Both of these programs are built on the same neuroscience principles that you hear me talk about all the time and that we've discussed today. They work with your brain rather than against it. And you can find links in the show notes always. Ultimately, successful habit formation isn't about the calendar date that you start. It's about understanding and working with the remarkable 3-pound universe that sits between your ears. When you align your habit strategies and how your brain actually works, that's when real, lasting change becomes not just possible, but probable. That's all I have for us this week, my friends. Until next time, choose peace, and I will see you on Monday.